We didn't have artificial parts. I didn't know about artificial parts. I'm sure they were done extensively, but when we got a trout, for instance, or a salmon, they have really oily heads, and I was taught to mount the fish with the oily head, clean it out as good as you can. As soon as the fish hardens in a day or two and starts, you know, he's drying, you would cut out the top of the head. You just cut the whole thing off and clean it out. You would fill it full of borax. There was not polyurethane foam in those days. You know, we had to, we packed it with Excelsior actually, and then we had a product called PC7, which they still make today, and we rebuilt the top of the trout head, and then we would sand it down to try to make it as reasonable, lifelike looking as we could, and it was probably not very lifelike looking. And then different products came which made it a little bit easier, like some of the epoxies, the two-part epoxies, and we did that. And then, I don't know, somewhere in the 80s, I started making artificial heads out of geltrate and Bondo, and I would suspend the fish and just trout and salmon again, you know, suspend them in a container of geltrate, which is dental plaster, and I would let it get hard, and I would carefully take the fish's head out of it, and it's a flexible, it's the same stuff that the dentists use in your mouth when you get mouth work done. And then I would take auto body putty and I would rotate around this inside of that mold, auto body putty, until you breathed enough fumes that you should be done now. And that was my fish head. And usually you got the complete mouth with the first pull. Other than that, if the mouth would break off because the gel trait wasn't very strong. But that was my first introduction into artificial heads. And the ones that we made were much better than the dried up shrunken fish head, but still there was a lot of cosmetics and auto body work, a lot of sanding and shaping and setting eyes and things like that. So we still had a lot of that to do. And we only did it on trout and salmon. And if we had damaged fish fins, we usually backed them with something. We backed them with anything from, you know, big splits in a fish fin like this. We would back them with cardboard. We used Lexan for years and years and years. All kinds of different things that would fill in the void, and then we would retexture the rays and that sort of thing, and make them look presentable for you know, the customer. Try to make them look as good as we could. But again, trout and salmon was what we used heads for, but nowadays, you like to refer to them as hybrid fish. There's a lot of taxidermists doing hybrid fish, and by hybrid, they're actually using the fish skin, so the customer's getting his real fish back, but a lot of people are using artificial heads, whether they make them themselves, like we used to do, or they buy them, and there's some great companies on the market, and Gary Bruck has one of the nicest fish heads. You like these. There, I mean, this is about as realistic as you can get, and I would have to say this was probably for sure cast from a real smallmouth bass, and then any imperfections that it might have had in the molding process, it was made into a production mold, and these are really, really nice.
They are. They're very nice.
And available in a whole lot of different species. We have trout and smallmouth and largemouth and pike and muskies and a whole lot of them. And you can check our website, or you can see the catalog for a complete listing. But a lot of people use these on all of their fish mounts. And what's interesting is people say, why would you want to cut off the head and use an artificial head? Any of you that have done a lot of fish, you know what it takes to skin this out. To skin this out really completely all the way up past the eyes takes a lot of work, takes a lot of patience, without poking holes through the top of the head, through the cheeks, that sort of thing. So skinning it can be problematic, you know. A bigger fish, I mean a big muskie or a pike, which we do a lot of, and we skin out a lot of heads, and I would say it takes a couple hours to really clean that head as good as it really needs to be cleaned. Now, once you've cleaned the real head and you've mounted the fish, then you have all this shrink that starts taking place. Yeah. And I don't think there's anything you can do to stop the shrink other than let it, yeah.
Morris Stevens would like to know if the stand that is holding the fish, if it can be used on a bigger fish.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've got, we do everything on those stands, and they're nothing but a piece of plywood from our wood shop, a 2x2. This is a copy. And we'll put a wire in the back. We'll show you that on one of the fish in the next, maybe today if we get to it, or maybe next week. But back to the fish head, then you need to rebuild all that shrunken area, and that is extremely labor intensive, because fish are nice and plump and meaty, but they're not chipmunks, so you gotta be careful, you gotta watch your reference, you gotta pay attention to you know, the real thing, and there's all kinds of tools for that, and Brett says the two most powerful tools that he has are right here, and that's his fingers to smooth all that epoxy and make it beautiful. So that is one reason I would opt for trying an artificial fish head. Once you get the hang of putting it on the body, painting it to match your skin color, you will love the accuracy in this. These are,
they're very, very
they're good. They're as good as any on the market.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of different things. We've brushed on a little bit. You don't want people to see the back of the fish.
Well,
we brushed on it a little bit. Fiberglass reproductions. So we have fiberglass reproductions. So the total fish is reproduced. This is Waters by Klaus, and you get fins. You can get from the reproduction companies. You can get assembled. You can get them unassembled. You can get them all different ways. You can even get them painted if you want to.
Yeah.
And I had a red fish once that I didn't even know what a red fish was, and I called Mike Kirkhart and he said, "Let me paint it for you." And I thought, he can paint a red fish better than a guy that's never seen one, and it's probably the most beautiful red fish ever. But so you can go the whole artificial fish route, or you can opt for using the customer's skin and use an artificial head.
Yep.
And we
Out back there, it's just
and here's an example of any of our trout, salmon. This isn't always. This is how we would treat those. The head is just on here loosely. We'll have to.
We'll slide up on there.
We'll have to. I don't know. Break it. It'll go flying. But we'll have to attach it permanently, and we will have to set eyes. But all the anatomy's there. So attach this to there. Match the head tone to the skin. Seal and paint him. And you'll never have an insect problem. You'll never have a bug eating at a little fleshy spot or anything like that.
So that's just the head.
That's just the head. And then we have artificial fins. And that's an option. Sometimes you'll have a damaged fin and you want to replace just one. Sometimes all of the fins are damaged and you opt to replace them all. Fins, to me, I've always said they're like butterfly wings. Butterfly wings are really pretty. They're not ratty and tore up. I like to make my fish fins that way. So if it takes an artificial one, I have no problem doing that. If you want to check with your customers if it's okay, you know. Somebody someday will say, "I like the splits in my fins. I want you to leave them there." But to show you an example, here is northern pike fins, and this fish was caught and kept in a keeper overnight. This is what's left of his tail. Now we're talking a $500 fish mount. It's a little guy. This is not a large northern pike, it's a little guy. And if I paid a lot of money for us to do a good job and got fins back like this, I'd be sad, you know? That's gonna go on your wall, and your family's gonna come in on Thanksgiving and say, oh, who does your taxidermy work? Ah, Matuska's. You know, I want them to look nice when the customer gets them. So, you had a mold of
Oh, yeah.
pike fins
Yep.
that you lent me, and we made some artificial fins. And this is that fish. You can see all the scars in the body from being kept. Plus, these are the fins that we made and put on. These are, I guess I'd call them a base coat. You know, I started to put some of the color into them. I didn't want to get too carried away because I'm going to end up painting the whole fish. But his eyes are set, his head has been rebuilt, his jaws have been rebuilt. The fins are just epoxied in, and that's all that's been done to him so far. And the next thing I will do is smooth out any tags of leather sticking up here, fish skin, and then I will take one of our epoxy materials, either Rick Crane's clay or epoxy sculpt or fix-it sculpt, and I will, using my reference, rebuild this union to that without making it look like a great big old gob of putty on there. Once that's all rebuilt, this fish, he was so rough in the skin that we sealed him, and that will kind of give the skin some strength and the little filaments of fish scales that are sticking up. And then I took sandpaper and sanded him, just petted him, and he feels really nice now. But he's going to take a whole lot of coloration because of the big scars, but he's going to have beautiful fins and his head's all been rebuilt. So we do that a lot too.
You know what we did last week? We did sealer.
Oh, see.
So after applying our sealer, then you can sand it.
I did that. But anyway, you might have a fish that has a bad fin, maybe a bad tail. Most of the fish fin people, and we don't carry fish fins, but most of the fish fin people probably aren't going to sell you a tail. They sell them in sets. This is a set from this walleye, and I've got gills, I've got pectoral fins, pelvic fins, anal fins, soft and spiny dorsal fins. So you're going to get a whole set. If you just use one, save the rest. It won't be very long, and you're going to use the rest of the fins in the set. So, if you want to give your customer something like that, that's fine, but we typically don't. But you might want to check with them, just in case. So we have a smallmouth here, and we're gonna take a smallmouth from start to finish. This will be a 72 segment. By the time we get done, we tend to drag things out a little bit. But we want to make sure you're clear on processes and that sort of thing. But here's a smallmouth that came in, and if you're going to use an artificial body, or if you were going to, usually if they brought you the fish, you won't make a reproduction because you have the fish there. But if we're going to do a hybrid fish like you were talking about, we would still measure this fish, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the measurement sheet is important to us and actually to the customer too, to make sure that we give him back what he brought us.
Because you either are going to carve a body, or you're going to purchase a body, and you're going to need measurements for either one of them.
Yep.
So, do you want to give them that process?
Yeah, absolutely. And this fish looks like a really good candidate for
Yeah, look at that tail.
artificial fins. This is
And you can fix that. You can fix those tails, but boy, you can replace them way neater.
Yeah. So at this point, we've determined that we're going to make a tracing of it. We'll take a pattern for our commercial fish, whether we're going to use a commercial body or if we're going to carve our body. Either way, it's just a great reference. We keep it around. We keep it when we attach the head. We use it when we fit the fish, and we use it when it's all done just to double check and make sure that we're giving our customer back as much fish as he gave us. So we'll just go through. There are some key points of reference that we want to know. if you were just measuring this fish for a commercial body, and when we talk about a commercial body, it would be a purchase body such as this. We would want to have, and check with your supply companies. We have a diagram up here in the catalog that shows which measurements we need. We're going to need a measurement from the center of the eye to the base of the tail, from here to here. So I'm going to start right there to right there, and I'm going to get about 14 inches.
And that's important. Look at your legend. Every catalog will have a little legend because every company does it a little bit different.
So in our catalog, that is going to be measurement, we're going to call that measurement A. So I'm going to note that here as 14 inches. Then I'm going to take a girth measurement, which would be the largest girth, and typically that's going to occur somewhere in the front half ahead of the vent. If he were very heavy with spawn, it might or she might occur further back, but this is going to be the largest girth. Most often it will be right back here in the back portion of the fish, and we're going to get to about 13 and a half, something like that. So I'm going to go, that would be our circumference or B measurement, 13 and a half. And then we're going to take an overall length, which is just handy. Now, know that your overall length is going to vary just a little bit with your customer. If your fish were curved this way, hard curve, measuring straight across, it may not come out exactly the same, but our measurement is taken with the fish laid down on the table, the tail relaxed, and the mouth relaxed, not necessarily pinched up tight. And in that instance, we're going to get to about 18 and a half.
There might be more pieces of tail in the sink if you need to make them do.
And so that's going to be length is 18 to 18.5. And then we would just refer to our measurements here in the catalog. Our A measurement is 14, and so we've got a 14 here. We've also got 13 and a half for girth, and I'm seeing it here. And we've got 19 and a half for length, which we may have more. I assume we have a little bit more tail right out there. So to me, that would be a pretty good body to start with for this fish.
Now what happens if, say it's been my experience that customers run home and the first thing they do is grab a tape measure and measure their fish, you know.
Yeah.
You don't want to shrink up the length of a fish.
Right.
And they never call if it's a little bit longer, but they'll always call if it's a quarter inch shorter.
Yeah.
So what happens if you have to make a decision? What if you're right in between? Is there a way to build up that body or cut it down?
I think you can do both. I think if you were within a quarter of an inch, lengthwise, say our B measurement from the center of the eye to the base of the tail was coming up short, but we still had a good girth, we could cut this body right through here and move it forward, put a spacer in, and add length and maintain the girth. If you were to add more than a quarter, you may have to do that a couple times. You might do it back here as well, just taking a good measurement. If you needed to do that, I would strongly recommend having a good pattern made that you could refer back to.
Or you could cut him in half and make bookends.
You could make him swim into a wall, this end on one side and this end on the other.
And I've also seen you put more curve in and take curve out.
You can do that. You can definitely do that. Our bodies are a nice gentle S curve. If you had a call for a hard curve or an action pose, maybe jumping, you might want to add curve to this, and that's really easily done by removing a wedge from the inside, adding a little bit of a space to the backside with a relief, and you can do that all along the length of the fish. I'll do that with competition fish. If I have any particular hard curves, I'll bend them that way rather than try to carve the curve. So you can do that. You can alter a commercial mannequin fairly easy. You could add girth if you needed to add a little bit. just felt like this belly needed to be a little bit taller, you can certainly add that as well, by adding our urethane foam on top of it. And then carving that down. So I would suggest, if you know from us that you're gonna alter a form, give us a call, special order it without a board, without a piece of plywood in it. That's gonna be an issue if you do try to cut this. You're gonna run into a piece of plywood in the middle. And that is for security and for mounting purposes that plywood's in there, so.
And fish bodies aren't overly expensive. I find that if I order one, it often is too big or too small. I find if I order 3, one of them's gonna fit, and I'm gonna have 1 or 2 to compare to for the next time I order a body.
Yep. And one thing to note too is that you also have a thickness of skin that has to go around this body. So you're measuring over the thickness and then you're putting that over a body. So to be a little bit on the small side would probably be a little bit more desirable if you were gonna try to get a very, very tight seam. Those are the 3 measurements you would take from us. You may also see a front of the clade from bone to the base of the tail. That would be another measurement you could take. If we were going to carve this body, we need some more measurements than that, and we'll go into those now. Anytime we carve or make a pattern, we're going to want to pose the fish in the pose that we want him to appear on the wall. So if he were a jumping fish and we wanted to have just a slight tail up or a descending fish or a slight tail down, you would want to do that now. We're going to put that into our tracing.
Kind of like a mammal, almost like a mammal form.
Yeah,
Hunched up raccoon will measure different than a
absolutely.
raccoon climbing up a tree.
Yep, and we want to make sure our anatomy is correct too. And so if we are going to have a closed mouth on our fish, we would want to trace him with a closed mouth. And the reason that's important is up here in this collarbone area where it comes down here and comes to the peak right here, you'll notice that as the fish's mouth is closed, this comes all the way up. It's basically attached to the tongue. But if I open his mouth, he opens his mouth using his muscles down below, and the tongue follows and pushes down like this. So we still have a nice visual line like that. And if we're going to have an open mouth form, we're going to have it pushed down rather than having an open mouth like that, where his tongue sticks up inside.
Common beginner mistake.
We see that a lot. We do see that a lot. So we want to pose him exactly how we want. This fish will probably be a nice little gentle relaxed mouth, so we'll put it right about there. If you wanted a wide open mouth, I would urge you to maybe take some ear splitters. Those work pretty well. Pinch those in there and make your tracing while you're doing that, especially for northern and musky, big toothy critters. So now we'll just take some critical measurements. We'll do a quick tracing. The only part of this pattern that's absolutely necessary is the body itself. You can see there's no portion of the head on that, but I went over the top of his head just because we're going to put the union in there.
Justin's asking what paint kit he should get for crappie. He's working on his first fish. And I would say probably to call in and talk to you guys and put him in a direction of colors.
Yeah, paint is a huge topic. You want to dive into
Where
that
do
while I make
where
a
do I start?
tracing?
I always say we've been lacquers. I have been lacquers for 40 years and have switched waters a few times and never successfully until this last year. And with the help of Craig Kennedy, we got from Createx. We carry Createx, and before we did, we put it through the test. And I think we told you last week how we spent a whole day, 3 of us. Are we gonna, this has to be good because we're gonna be answering questions and we have to know this stuff works and it has to be better than the lacquers or we don't wanna switch. And so we're totally Createx on mammals and fish and everything, and we love it. And so we don't have kits. We have a mammal kit in Createx. We do not have a fish kit. There was somebody from Canada yesterday that I did make a fish kit for him. He told me which fish that he was going to be doing, and I selected the colors. There'll probably be, if you if you call, I may steer you into probably, I don't know, 10 colors, 12 colors that I think you should have. And you can always mix those colors too. You're not stuck just because a red is lipstick red doesn't mean you can't turn it into a dark red or a flesh also. So yeah, call in and visit, and they'll get either Brett or I, and we can talk you through it. And if you want to try it, we also have what is it, a sample pack, or what's it called? Of primary colors, is that what it is? It's got just the bright primary colors, but with those you can mix those very easily and come up with the colors that you want.
Okay, so you can see we have it tracing now.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a decent outline of what the fish looked like. Now, if we were to hold our pencil on an angle that were outward like that, we might actually be making this fish a 1/2 inch bigger all the way around, which obviously isn't gonna fit
Mhm.
him at all. And so the next step that I like to do when we trace a pattern is we'll take the fish and lay it right next to it. We're gonna take some measurements, but before we measure, I wanna know that my pattern is close. So I'm gonna check this with the calipers, and then I'm gonna come back here to my tracing. And that's gonna be pretty close.
That's really good.
I'll do it in a few
That's
critical
lucky.
spots. Now, I had this one done earlier, like a cooking show. No, this one we actually did. And then right here, we're gonna do the same. So this is probably gonna measure pretty well. This is the spot that I would say most people have a problem with because you're not gonna quite get your angle correct. So you wanna double check that width right there. And you can see I'm a little bit off. So I'm gonna make that note right here, and I'm gonna correct my pattern right now so that when I trace it and cut it out, it's gonna be accurate.
That's how you do that.
Stop it. Now we need some widths and some heights. You wanna do those?
No, you go. You show them. You're on a roll now.
What kind of paper are you using?
This is butcher paper. That's a great question. This is our wax paper. It works very well, and the reason that we use wax paper is because we can lay the slimy wet fish onto the waxed side, and it's not going to soak through and wreck the pattern. And most of the time we'll have somebody in our classes, they put their pattern down on the paper side and start tracing, and all of a sudden the paper starts to fall apart, and the pattern doesn't last quite as well.
And that's not something you really need. A lot of people do it out of grocery sacks,
Yeah,
paper
paper bags,
grocery sacks. But once you have the butcher paper, you will
Yeah.
always
You
have
won't-
butcher paper.
yeah,
It's just
you won't
nice
go the
to
other
work
way.
with.
It certainly is. So the first measurement we're going to take here is the width of where the head meets the body, and that's a critical measurement, and we're going to need that whether we carve or we choose to use a commercial mannequin when we attach our artificial head. So that's our width right there, right where the scales quit. You can see that's where the head would start. And I'm going to take that measurement, I'm going to take it against a metal ruler. You can use your tape measure, but that's a width, and it's going to be 1 1/4 inches. So I'm going to put 1 1/4, and I'm kind of writing upside down, so if this gets messy, we might have to check again. The next width I'm going to check here is the width of the pelvic fins, and notice the bottom portion of this fish from the pelvics forward is pretty flat, so I kind of like to have that measurement there. We know how far apart the union of those fins are. If we spread those fins, that point doesn't change, so it's a good fixed point to measure. So we'll take that measurement quick, and that is 7/8, and I notice I marked that on the page when I had the fish there, so I'm going to put 7/8, and I'm circling all my widths because 20-some years ago when I was in school, that's what you did. But you need to know the difference between your height measurements and your widths, and that's what we've always done.
Yeah, you
So-
can put a HWC
Yeah.
for
Yep.
circumference anyway, just so you know what you did.
Yep. The next measurement I need is the width here at the cleathron bone, right in front of the pectoral fins. So I'm going to take that overall width, and notice if this was a big spawning fish, this fish would lay out wide as it's on the table. When I lift it up, this way, that width really isn't changing. So I'm gonna take these on the table, but that is something to consider as you're making your pattern. So I'll take that width, and that's gonna be about 2 3/8.
Now, even if you took the 3 measurements, ordered your body, got your body coming in the mail, you would still benefit greatly from these measurements if you took the time for when your body
would,
came and it
yeah.
doesn't fit and you'd wonder why it doesn't fit, you could resort back to these.
Absolutely, because this is, we just took this measurement here,
Mhm.
and if we found that that was unusually wide or narrow on our body compared to our fish, that's really gonna change how all of that anatomy works up there, and your skin's not gonna go. So we're gonna take this measurement, compare it to that, and just out of curiosity, what did we have, 1 1/4 inches? I think this is gonna be just a little bit more. 1 1/4 inches.
That's good.
So that, oops, that worked.
All pre-measured.
Not really. Now I'm gonna take a measurement right in the middle, for width. And what we like to do is take measurements where the anatomy changes, where the body changes. So, this is gonna be about 2 1/4 in the middle.
And carving bodies is a real art to do it well. And when I first attempted to carve bodies back from the old fish fill method, it took me a full 1.5 to 2 years before I could carve a body and know that it would work and be content with it. It was trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. We didn't have people to show us in those days.
Well, you showed me, and that was something that I think we had. It took me forever to figure out how to carve a body after I was showed. So it's just something that takes practice, lots and lots and lots.
Everyone
of
you do,
practice.
try to make your measurements, try to make your tracing more accurate, make your measurements more accurate, make your carving more accurate. Check, check, double check. We can do it now from the tracing alone probably and have it fit the first time. But that's been years and years and years of doing this too.
Yeah. Thank goodness I didn't have to figure it out myself. Now, we're taking measurements in locations on the fish body that there are anatomical changes and they're constants. So this fin is always gonna attach at this point right here. I can take a width measurement right there and know that I'm straight up and down from these. So I put that measurement in relationship to where it was taken on the body, and it was taken at that location. Now if I took the measurement a 1/2 inch back right here, I would typically put my measurement right there if there was a reason I needed to take it in that location. But you'll see that at that point, the width of this body is 1 3/8. But if I come back to this point 1 inch further back and take that measurement, there's my 1 3/8. I'm at least 1/4 inch narrower. So it's very critical that we get those located correctly on our pattern, and that way we can get them into our carving, or we can check them accurately on our body. So these are my widths. You could go through the same thing and do your heights as well. Same location. We're gonna put one right there, which is right here that we checked. And that's gonna be 4 3/4. And this one I'm not gonna circle because this is a height. I'm gonna do it again back here by the vent. 4 7/8. That's the vent. And we're not gonna use the height measurement as often to refer back to because we have it in our pattern, but we like to have them there, just to come back to. And so I'll take those critical measurements, and then we can go along those same areas, and we'll take a circumference, which, you wanna explain to them why even if they have the height and the width, why the circumference is important?
It'll take a chalkboard, whiteboard.
There we go.
It's a phenomenon.
Phenomena? Isn't that the Muppet song?
Banana. Dun, dun.
No.
When you're teaching yourself body carving, you keep everything you think right, and they still won't fit. What you're starting with is a block of foam. You're gonna take a block of foam, and you're gonna carve this fish out of here, and he's gonna be square to start with. So you're gonna have a fish out of your chunk of foam. And so as you look at him from the end, he's gonna look like that. And if you did your tracing really, really careful, your fish is, how wide is he in his widest spot?
His widest spot, this fish is 2 3/8 wide.
So you cut out a block 2 3/8 inch wide, and a height of 4 something, did you have?
I had 4 7/8.
4 7/8. So the interesting thing is your square block of foam is going to measure the exact same as your fish body when you're done with it. So you're gonna have a 2 3/8 and 4 7/8. Now, the difference between the square part and this is the circumference.
Yes.
So when you cut out your block, you might have a 18-inch circumference and you need 13. So you're going to have to start shaving a smallmouth shape in here till you get to wherever you took your circumference measurements, and then you're gonna have to check those.
Yeah.
So just because your width measures what you have on the paper, your height measures what you have in the paper, you may end up, we see this a lot with students, they round the corners, but they end up with a square fish.
And then he doesn't fit. He's too big. The seam doesn't come together, and they say, well, my height is right and my width is right. How come the skin doesn't fit? So that's very, very important. So if you were to take this fish and actually freeze him and cut him on the bandsaw and be able to look at him in cross section, those shapes are going to change all throughout the body of this fish, and that's why those circumference measurements are important.
And then now, what would you do with that if you're gonna carve a body?
If we were going to carve a body at this point, we would cut it out. We would put it onto a block of, we like this yellow fish carving foam. What is the
Number 2.
density?
I would say it's like,
2 pounds?
is it 2? It's a soft 2.
Yeah.
It's, once you carve them, watch your throat latch, we call it, and watch your tail, because it is fragile, and we don't do anything to reinforce it. Once that fish skin dries on this, they're rock hard. I mean, they're super, super durable. And we like that, but there's other kind of foams. There's the higher density that you get usually gets more expensive. This can be a little bit messy. It gets all over your clothes. It gets, you know, on your hands and your eyes. If it gets in your eyes, don't rub them. Just let it water out, and it will water out. There's dustless fish foam we carry, and it's the blue foam, and that works real well. We like this mainly because of the color, for one thing, because whatever fish foam you use, the color will telegraph through the skin. And we've had pink fish foam, and I remember your term when we went from gray to pink. You said, "I think it's a lateral change, not." You talked in terms, advanced terms. But anyway, gray darkened up the fish skin, which we didn't realize, but they didn't look as good. And pink actually added some fleshies around the fins and things, which wasn't bad. And this is not made for the taxidermy industry. It's insulation of some sort. So we don't get a choice of what color this comes. And we used to get a color change probably every 3-4 years. And we've had pink, we've had gray, it's been yellow now for quite a while. But the blue, if you use the blue, we would paint it with like Kills or some kind of
Yeah.
latex, flat latex paint, because to seal up that blue so it doesn't telegraph through the skin.
And no matter what you're gonna do for a body, or what you're gonna do for a fish, you're gonna have to have some kind of a body, whether it's a carved body or a commercial mannequin. Before we cut into this fish, it would be nice if we could use one of our fancy heads.
Yeah,
So we should show them how to measure for that.
good idea.
You wanna show them that?
Catalog? Okay, wherever you get your head from, and you can get them anywhere, but if you want really, really, really nice ones, Gary Brooks are pretty darn tough to beat. And not every company's gonna have the head that you need. You know, there may be gaps, there may be, areas where you don't, you know, smaller one might be too small, bigger one might be too big, you know, and then you gotta make a decision, or go to another company. There's a lot of different people, all the major companies carry fish heads. Waters by Klaus have fish heads. Lake Country, we have fish heads. Gary Brooks, they're all, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, you're gonna see in here, there's gonna be a length, height, and width. The length is gonna be typically from the tip of the lower mandible to the back of his gill cover. The width would be like the widest point through here. Probably use this one. This would be the width. And your height is gonna be from the top of the head down to the bottom of the throat latch.
Yep.
So you're gonna measure your fish as close as you think you can get, and you got 3 measurements to pick from, so you might have to, you know, if you short yourself one, you know, you might have to lengthen yourself on another. Also, if for instance, the length is perfect and the height is perfect, but the fish head is narrow, we put these in hot water. And we put them in hot water, and you can gently squeeze them and then hold them under cold water to set them. We do that all the time. Put them in hot water, spread the gill cover softly, just keep putting pressure on it. You can gain a ½ inch on something like that.
Yeah, you
So there's a lot of alterations. It's pretty tough. I've done it. It's pretty tough to close a mouth or open a mouth. That changes the whole anatomy, but as far as widths, you can do that.
You'll hand me that, I'll show them how it fits here too, as you're doing that.
Okay, my length, I'm gonna guess to be just comfortable without pinching him. I'm gonna say he is just a tad over 5 inches. So you're gonna go down to the smallmouth bass, and the first thing I'm gonna do is look at where I'm at 5 inches. I've got a good one at 5 1/4, and I got 4 1/2. So I'm gonna have to make a decision. Well, I got a 5 1/8 also. So my choices are 5 1/8, 5 1/2, 5 1/4. The one that looks the closest to me is gonna be 5 1/8. Now I'm gonna check my height. I need 3 7/8. And now with his gill cover down, that would be a very good choice, I think, 3 7/8. I'm about an 1/8 inch long, but when you put him in a body and this comes down just softly like that, that looks like it's gonna be what I want. And smallmouth bass, 3 7/8. I need about a 3 3/8 width. Now, this poor fish has been hiding in the freezer, so we're gonna open him up a little bit. Okay, and just a comfortable width without squinching his gills down. I'm gonna have about a 3 probably. So this one's a little bit wider. Let's see, he is 3 1/4, so I'm about 1/4 inch wide, which would be a perfect one to put into the hot water and gently squeeze him.
Yeah, very easy to accommodate that. And once they get their head and they have their body carved, you can see we'd have something like this. That's actually a pretty nice fit for what I would like to see.
It looks really nice.
We may fill that in before mounting, but it's gonna go on there just about like that. Feels like we could do just a little bit to that fit, but that's gonna be a pretty decent fit there.
So,
And we may close that up on top.
and you don't wanna be waiting, waiting. You don't wanna just get one fish in and, you know, order things and sit and wait with a drying up fish. Our method is, we would take this fish, make the pattern, measure the head, measure the body. I would suggest doing that for a batch of fish, you know, we do batches of 12 fish at a time or more sometimes. Order all of your parts at once, and as soon as you measure this fish, go ahead and skin him and get him completely ready to mount. I would not cut the head off to begin with, just in case something goes wrong and something doesn't fit. You have the real head to fall back on if you have to. And you don't have to clean it out too good if you're gonna use the artificial head also. So then once all of your parts come, get your fish out, as many as you're gonna do in a day, and take the skin, test fit it on the body, alter the body. Once you know the body is a go, compare the head and put it together.
Yeah, and we'll show them that in another.
I think next week we'll probably take that body, we're gonna show you how to put a wire in it. Somebody was commenting on the crappie and the stand, we just make those stands out of pieces of scrap lumber, but we have a heavy wire coming out the back of them that we can put on our stand, and when the fish is completely done, we even paint them like that, and when it's completely done, we take that wire, straighten it, pull it out, and we put it on our artificial driftwood, real driftwood, panels, whatever you want. It's a excellent way of mounting a fish. If the customer says, geez, I was hoping you're gonna have him going down after something instead of just straight. With a wire, even if it's a heavy wire, just carefully, we bondle that wire in there. It's not gonna hurt. You can carefully alter the attitude of that fish with the wire system. So we're gonna show you how to do that. We're gonna show you how to attach that head so it's an easy on and off. It's difficult for me to mount the fish with the artificial head attached. I don't know about you, but I like to, if everything's a go, take the head off, set it on the table, mount the skin, then I'll take that head and place it on.
Yeah.
And then when we do finish work, we'll attach it permanent. That's
Yeah.
what we like to do. So we're gonna show you how to do that. And we'll probably take that fish from start to finish, show you the coloration in another segment. And, fins, we gotta talk about fins too.
Yep.
You may wanna, if you need fins, you may wanna order a fin set, and usually for that, they just kinda go by the weight of the fish, I think. So, it'll say fins for, this one doesn't say, but if you look in the catalogs, it'll say fish for a 4 to 5 pound walleye, or fish for a 5 to 8 pound largemouth bass. And
these were specifically for that
For that.
walleye reproduction,
Yeah.
so they came fitted for that.
And the nice thing about fins is, first of all, fish fins, healthy fish have neat fins. Not scissors cut, like when we back them, but not all ratty either. These fins have beautiful edges.
Yeah, we do.
And what we like to do with these is attach them to the fish, softly heat them with a heat gun, and put some shape into them. And then when they cool, you have a really nice, I mean, look at that pike with the different waves in its fins. It just looks nice.
Morris is wondering, looking at the catalog, there's an assembled 17-inch crappie. Can you make it 17 and a half? I feel like he's looking at the reproduction,
I'm gonna say it's gonna be 17.
because the reproduction 17 and then our fish on form is 17 and a half for length.
Yeah, they would have nothing to do with each other.
Well, I don't know which one he's looking at, but
Oh,
he's basically
gotcha.
talking, can you make a 17-inch into a 17 and a half?
If it's the foam body, probably pretty easy, yes?
I'd be careful with a crappie, stretching a crappie skin, but if it's a 17-inch body going onto a fish that measured 17 and a half, that might work. You may have to take the body down a little bit, but crappies are really delicate, so be careful stretching that skin too much.
And just in case anybody's talking about reproductions,
Yeah.
you'll never go wrong going up an inch on a reproduction. Never.
No.
You know, customers will never complain. And also, we will show you on that one, I think, we'll set him up and we'll put him on a stand. We'll show you artificial fins,
Mhm.
show you how to color them, how to attach them, how to do the putty work. We're gonna have, this fish isn't too pretty right now, but he's gonna be a masterpiece when we get done.
Yes.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will. We're pretty good at these things around here.
So we'll cover skinning next week. We'll skin in brief.
I think we'll skin in brief. I think I'll have just give you a really quick cuts, opening him up, get him started, and then we will have probably another one that we're going to use on this, like the cooking
Yeah.
show, that will be completely done, ready to go. And he'll maybe have his head on, and we'll show you where to cut to take the head off, and how to set him all up.
Cool.
So
And you-
again, all these products that you've used today are gonna be 15% off through tomorrow night, so that would be Gary Bruck's, heads, fish on fish forms, Chicago cutlery knife, the fish skinning knife, Wesnett scissors,
So you can
cheap
get that here.
scraper, deluxe scraper, borax plus, grease pencil, measuring tape, calipers,
Grease
and poly
pencil.
calipers.
Grease
So all the stuff that they use is on the, and if you go to the website, there's actually a spot that says FB Live, and it's right there, you can see it all, and use the code FBOOK15 for 15% off to get all the products that these guys were using today.
And we didn't get to the skinning today, so we will include those things on the 15% off next week.
Perfect. We actually had movie day today, so I watched last week, I watched the movie, or the documentary Stuffed. And I saw Dakota had on her thing that if you haven't watched it yet, you guys are kicked out of her friend group. And I didn't want you guys to get kicked out of her friend group,
Oh.
so we ordered it again, and you guys watched it today, and
Yes,
tell me
we
what
did.
your thoughts were.
I thought it was super cool. I was impressed, very, very impressed. I didn't know what to expect, and it was good. It was very good.
It was very well done, I thought. So if you haven't watched it, Stuff was very well done, and I just thought it was a great way to portray taxidermists and what they do as far as, it's not just about death and stuff. You guys love nature and you love preserving it and making it last and telling a story. I loved it.
Yeah.
I had ideas from the World Show because we had these cameras and we had lights and we had movie producers and makeup people, and I'm going, oh my gosh, you know, what is this gonna be? And then they, you know, I hear about this, I see little, Dakota has little Facebook posts and Remington and stuff like that, and I'm not into this yet until I saw it today, and it is fabulous. If you haven't seen Stuffed, you gotta see it.
Yeah.
It portrays taxidermy like it should be portrayed. As artists, as magicians and wizards, I mean, really at the highest element of science and art combination. It was fabulous, and all the people.
We have people from all over the
I don't want
world.
to start
Yeah.
naming names because I know a lot of these people, and I'd leave somebody out, but they had the best people in the industry
Yeah.
in the documentary, and Alice, it was great.
It was
It was
very
great.
good. It was
Really
very fun to
impressive.
watch.
It was.
It was funny because the next day after I watched it last week, Daniel called and placed an order, and it's rare if you catch me on the phone because I kind of tune it out, but I answered it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I watched you on the big screen last night, so I got to chat with him about it. But it was very fun. If you haven't watched it, it's well worth the $5. Check it out. It's a great great show to portray taxidermists and what you guys do. It's very cool. On the Dakota bandwagon though, she posted Iowa. The Iowa show is canceled, we heard that. but she did do a post basically saying that they are going to, host a 2 to 3 day mini convention at the end of summer, early fall. So those that are still looking for something to, go take part in, go check out their Facebook page, the Iowa Taxidermy Association, and they'll keep you posted on all of that and the upcomings, cause that would be a great one. And then we're still planning on the Missouri show, as long as that's still a go, and their venue's open, right now it's up, so we're going to that one as well.
And we're gonna take Kaitlyn.
Yeah, she'd love it. We're gonna go golfing. I gotta go golfing with Cole, he doesn't know it yet though.
He's got a bad knee, he can't go golfing.
He could be my caddy.
You may be helping him move.
Things that are back in stock, we have Kate thread, the fix-a-tip we were out of last week, it's back in. Peroxide gallons and artificial snow for those that were waiting on that stuff, we have that back in.
We got the 348s and 349s done,
Oh.
the
The
XPs,
XPs,
those are ready to
those
go.
as well.
Let me tell ya, we demonstrated for you the gloss
Oh, yeah.
last
Cole
week.
says he'll be fine. Be fine to be my caddy. or
Wheelchair,
my
you can
golf.
push him around in a wheelchair. Anyway, the gloss that you pull the top off of, you mix it, it's an automotive gloss, shake it up and spray. And it's good for how long?
Can says 48 hours, that's all we knew.
We came in, I think I did it Friday, it was still good. I did it Tuesday when we got back to work this week, and it's still sprayed. I did it today, and I did a little practice piece, here we go.
Now, this is what was done on Thursday, this one. Can I touch it?
Sure. Oh my
Sure.
gosh, you can roll on it. Look at this is a
Yeah.
beautiful,
So-
beautiful automotive
so-
finish.
All set up.
So, Thursday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This morning, I took a piece of plexiglass, cause like I said, I like to test everything so that I can really see what it's doing. And we had some Latex Paint on here for mammal colors, and I sprayed this whole thing this morning, 1 week later, and it's hard enough to touch it, and I could still spray with it.
With the same can of activated gloss that we punched last Thursday on live.
So what I told you was a good product. I lied. It's a great product. It's really good. Can't be beat, I don't think.
They do say a lot of that depends on temperature, so your shot might be different than ours. It might vary a little bit from can to can, but for versatility to have more than 24, 48 hours.
Try scraping that with your fingernail.
Yeah,
And that's just, I can do it, but not very easy.
yeah.
Good product.
Our giveaway, you guys are giving away for sharing, so make sure to like and share this video. Our giveaway, you're giving away calipers, a grease pencil, Matuska measuring tape, and there's one other number, I'm not sure what it is. A surprise, but Richard Umstead is the winner. So Richard,
nice.
get in contact with us to see how to get your giveaway. But again, you've won calipers, the Matuska measuring tape, grease pencil, and give us a call. If you have any questions, give us a call 1-800-488-3256 or check out the website at www.matuskataxidermy.com.
Thank you, everybody.
We also had a bulk catalog mailing go out today, and we have another one going out tomorrow. So
Nice.
you should be getting those